Right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back. This is the UK Beef Podcast. It's been some time since we've been back, but we're back, the three amigos, although someone looks slightly different, not quite as tanned, and he's all the way from America. So let's introduce Jeff Surrette, who has been on the podcast before. He's now come back as one of the hosts alongside Robbie and Anchant. You'll be hearing a lot more from us, and now you've got three angles of attack from three different countries, the UK, Canada, where Robbie now resides, and Jeff's out in America. So that's very multicultural. So let's say hello, Jeff. How you doing?
Hey guys, thanks for having me back. We're looking forward to sharing the information and just enjoying talking with people that enjoy the sport like I do. Myself, I'm getting ready for some shows, so I'll be able to share some of my insight, and I work with Neale, so we'll get to look into some of his ideas, and I think the three of us, we'll have a lot of great information to share with everyone. So really looking forward to it.
Sweet. And Robbie, what's happening down in Canada?
I like it here. It's nice. It's nice and peaceful. Nice big mountains and stuff. Good gyms, heavy weights, pretty girls, but don't tell my wife. And that's about it, really.
And what about the hair, Rob? Where's the hair gone?
Well, funny thing that my artist is resident in the UK, and I'm dying to get back there just so I can have normal hair again, because it's killing me. Look, see, it's just like so boring. Can't live like this.
Are people not stopping in the street now to turn and say, "What the fuck is that on your head?"
No. They do when I'm wearing my shower cap, but that's about it.
And you're out there for good, but you are coming back, are you? Little birdie tells me you're flying back for a visit.
Yeah. I'll be popping back in and stuff, saying hello to everyone and stuff. Got family there, friends there. Well, sort of friends anyway. I think I have anyway. By the time I come back, I think they'd all be gone. So there you go. But I'll definitely be back for the BodyPower. So I'm looking forward to that.
Oh,
definitely.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
So have you heard of BodyPower, Jeff? It's like a big expo, probably like the Arnold expo that you have there that time of year. It's sort of the British equivalent. It's a massive fitness expo over 3 days.
I've heard of it before. I've actually, I know a few people that have gone out there before, and they were really impressed with the way that it was run and the size of it. And they said that it had a lot of good energy, and actually like a fair amount of people showed up. So it's always good.
Oh yeah, I mean it's an insane amount of people it's a huge space, and it gets bigger every year. I think it's actually done really, really well. I've actually been fortunate to be sponsored every year since it's been on, so I've always been there at a stand, and it's just grown like crazy. And the size of it's grown, and more people and more companies seem to turn up, and it's run mad. I went to the Olympia, finally after years of wanting to, a couple of years back. And went to their expo thinking it was just the Olympia, it would be crazy, bigger than BodyPower, and it wasn't. And it was messy. What I realised, there was empty boxes of all the outer boxes of supplements and stock just thrown all over the walkways. It was like, I thought that was a bit bizarre. Whereas the UK's, because it's so busy, it's kept really clean, and you get all the big names over in the UK, which is great. Although the queuing times just, off the wall if you want to queue and stop to speak to someone. But the people that seem to get the biggest queues are the Instagram guys more than the actual athletes that have achieved things. It seems these days. But in a way, that's a good thing for those that want to speak to the athletes. I suppose they don't queue as long. And then we've also had some other news that's developed in the UK. With the IFBB kind of controversy that's happened, and then they've split, and now the only way to get a pro card in the UK is to enter this Two Bros Pro show, which is a tongue twister. And it's Bob Ceccarillo is the voice, the man at the Olympia, and he come over to the UK only a few weeks ago to host the very first one, which I attended. And I mean, just to hear his voice and have him on the mic, it's kind of reminiscence of being at the Olympia. And they hosted this one at what seemed would be a huge venue in the where was it? The Canary Docks area. But it didn't quite live up to the standard that you thought it would, because, you know, in days gone by, the only way of winning a pro card is you had to win a qualifier in the UK to go to the British finals, and then win your class at the British finals, which was really, really, really hard. And then obviously win the overall. And if you won the overall, they gave you a pro card if they deemed you worthy of it. So it was like a real long-pronged attack to get there. And, you know, some guys had won the overall and then didn't get their pro card for years after. And, you know, there was lots of politics involved in it, you know. And so, you know, there's been a lot of excitement hoping this Two Bros Pro Show is a new way of earning a pro card, because you don't have to win. Well, you do have to win the overall, but they give out more than one pro card per show. And I think there's 3 shows per year. So there's lots more opportunities to get a pro card than there used to be in the UK. And I know in America, they kind of give pro cards out more than, is it at 2 or 3 events, or how does it work in the States?
I mean, because there's, you know, there's North Americans, Nationals, USAs, and also Team Universe get pro cards at. And, you know, some of them, you know, it's a top 2 per class as well. So it's not even just like the overall winners. So, I mean, you know, there's quite a few pro cards handed out here in the US, which, you know, it's an interesting way to do it, because, you know, it's not to say that some of these people don't deserve it, but, you know, when you look at someone that's hypothetically, say, second in the middleweights, you know, and he gets his pro card, I mean, is he really going to have an impact as a pro? Like, you know, but at the same time, to limit, you know, that same, say, middleweight to have to win an overall and have him have a hard time to actually beat like a super heavyweight, you know, it's nice to see that certain people, you know, have better chances to get cards, but at the same time, I think it is a tad excessive, and almost takes away from the quality of the things that come through.
Yeah, I mean, I think in the UK, like, to be a UK pro held such, well, in the IFBB, because obviously there are other federations that give out pro cards, like, you know, Sweeties over here, but in the IFBB, the pro card, if you won that, I mean, it was a real title to win, because there was only one given out per year, and you had to beat the best of the best. And you know, there's years gone by, weren't there, Rob, where we had some insane overalls at the British finals, where any of the top 4 or 5 in the overall, like, they could have had a pro card in any other year. They just happened to compete on a really tough year, and that, you know, that's been one of the fortunate sides of it. But I think, you know, the shows look at money, and they look at the more pros you can get turning out, and the more spaces you get to bring through newcomers as well onto that, you know, final stage, because the same people aren't there year after year, kind of clogging up the top spots. Yeah. So I think it's got falls and against, but so I went to this Two Bros pro show with a couple of the guys from Muscle Works, which is like a renowned gym in the UK that I've started training with, because they're really keen, and they're younger than me, and get less injuries. And I've sort of tagged along with them, and it's inspired me to give it a run as well. And we're all actually competing together, training together, and looking at doing the show, the next show, the Two Bros show, which is in June the 23rd. They've moved it to Coventry because the venue looks like it should be better than where it was in London. And yeah, it's been quite inspiring work training with these 2 lads. So I'll give a shout out to T and Enis, who are competing, 2 Turkish lads, and we train with another fella called Charlie. I don't know, he'd be crying in his sleep if I didn't mention him. So if he's not doing his eyebrows or putting his fake tan on, he's training with us. Who are you training with down there, Rob? You got anyone you're training with, or? Yeah,
I'm actually training with a light heavyweight bodybuilder, a guy called Chase Nelson, who's placed quite highly in his sport. He's done quite well. He's mixed race, so he lacks calves, poor fella. So that's definitely one thing we've got to work on. But otherwise, great physique, great upper body, and he's only about 25 years old. So I'm training with him and a couple of his friends and so on. And you realise actually the importance of having a training partner, or because you realise that you kind of can't really get anywhere yourself, without having someone else there to kind of help you along, and to push you, and for you to push them as well. It's very difficult to sort of show any improvement. I mean, for the first 2 or 3 months that I came here, I found it very hard to push myself. I found it very difficult to push through weights, and I found myself kind of almost degressing or just maintenance. Yeah, just staying at that kind of level. My body wasn't actually improving, so it was nice to sort of be able to prep guys, etc., and help in this way. But then it's also kind of helping yourself as well at the same time. I mean, Jeff, yourself, do you actually have a training partner or people that you kind of go back to help you with your training?
I train predominantly alone, and I actually train at very odd hours. So I could train anywhere like 4 a.m. or 1 a.m. or 6 p.m. So it's tough for me to line up training partners. One, and two, I'm very particular about my training, the sequencing of my training, and the speed that I go at while I train. I don't rest a lot. I recover very quickly between sets. So if I have to wait for someone to finish their set, I almost get frustrated because I'm already ready to go. And I've always pretty much trained alone for, except for maybe like a 5-year span where I had a good training partner when I was younger. But I've always just primarily trained alone, and I've just grown accustomed to doing so. But at the same time, when you do have that partner that can really push you, they are some of the best workouts you can have. I remember not that long ago, I was fortunate to train at Montanari Brothers Powerhouse Gym in Connecticut with Edward Koo and Dave Smith, and I mean, these guys are just beasts in the gym, and I was able to just hang with them and just push myself way past where I normally would. But right in there, and it was probably one of the best workouts that I've had in quite a long time. But again, that being said, I do enjoy training by myself because ultimately every set I just try to make as hard as possible, and I have no fear about getting stuck under a weight or anything like that. So I'm used to that too. So that's it's just one of those things where if I can line it up and have that right person, I definitely see the value there. But it's just hard to really find someone that you click with. So it's awesome that you guys have it.
Yeah, because it kind of adds a new lease of life into your training, you find. It's not only that, but when you get kind of getting ready for shows, just like you are, you realize you've got to train 2-3 times a day sometimes, plus the cardio and the eating in between. And like you said, I was very comfortable training at 1 a.m. in the morning, and you're not going to get a training partner to be training with you at 1 a.m., 4 a.m. in the morning. They're just going to look at you going, what the hell are you on? I've got a life. So I totally get that, especially when like you said, you're getting ready for a show. It's a completely different mindset. You're not looking to kind of push yourself hard to grow, because of course you can't grow because you're not taking in enough calories to even grow. You can barely speak even, let alone grow. So I totally get that. Especially, you tend to go into that kind of quiet plane of existence through 2 months, 3 months prior to a show, and literally put your head down, keep yourself to yourself, cover yourself up. You don't even want the world to even notice you. You're probably definitely at that stage now where you're like, don't even talk to me, aren't you?
I get the big headphones, the sweatshirt I wear, I have my hood on, it's a 3XL, you don't know what I look like. I'd like to stay covered up.
Yeah.
I go in, I'm in the zone. And again, I train at odd hours just because, right now I do like giant sets and stuff like that. So I really don't want people in my way or taking the equipment, which slows me down. So it's just one of those things where it's just like, all right, what do I need to do to get myself into that position where I can literally just zone out, just be that person in the gym that's not sociable, not because I don't want to be or that I'm rude or anything, but I'm so focused. Like you said, I don't have to push, for progressive overload or anything like that at this point. So it's literally just going in and pushing as hard as I can to get that pump and to glycogen and really just work certain angles of my physique to really bring out that detail. So it's kind of funny. You might see me doing, curls or something with like 10 pounds, and I'm doing a lot of reps. I'll be struggling. I'm like, people are looking at me like, what's going on with this guy? But it's generating that intensity, without injuring the joints and stuff, especially as I'm getting older. And it's just with the certain training styles, it's just, I really need to just be in that zone. And even just if you're training with someone, it's hard to time, even just a giant set so that you're not slowing down and stuff. So, I'm definitely in that, I'm definitely in that mode right now. 11 days out a year, and then I have more immediately after that. So I do look forward to having an actual off season and being able to cut back on the volume and start pushing some weight again and seeing what I can do. But at the same time, I'm not gonna lie, I kind of do like the torture of the prep stuff.
Because I mean, one of the ways I tend to get over it, because I train a couple of other fellas, Brian and Erin as well. So sometimes there's literally 4 of us training. So the only way that you're going to be able to do anything without everyone waiting around is you literally are constantly doing like giant sets, monster sets, supersets. So what I tend to do in that situation is I'll lead. And then I'll lead and I'll be maybe choose 4 or 5 different exercises, and then literally tell the next person along the line what they have to do on that particular exercise, and then just everyone keeps on going. So there is you don't get that stop, if you like. It becomes like follow my leader more than anything else. And so that's kind of a good, decent way of training. And then you gauge it towards the end because you just watch them sort of all fading out in the distance. And I smile at myself because I think to myself, right, these are fading out in the distance. Like I look, that kid there, he's like 20 years younger than me. And I look at him, he's on the floor sort of thing. So I still smile at myself, and I still smile and think, yeah, I kind of got it. I still got it. I mean, it must be similar with Neale, actually. Neale, is it the same with you guys? Because it's 4 of you again training together, isn't there?
There's 4 of us, and as the man and the legend Sav, the owner of Muscle Works, has said, which he's a guru in the UK, Jeff, but he's told us, put us in our place, that we shouldn't all be training together. Something to do with our genetics aren't online. I won't say whose, but certainly not mine. Thank God.
Was it the eyebrow guy, the tanning eyebrow guy? No,
okay. Mum's the word. I'm not spilling the beans. It's caused enough of us all know in the middle of a leg day that put a big old spanner in the session. But Sav doesn't hold back, Jeff. He's big shout out to Sav. He's been around for forever, and he runs a good chain of gyms in the UK. But he says what he thinks. He's now the disgruntled, angry old gym owner that just says what he thinks and don't care how it comes out. And he's told us all we're training wrong. He's told us all we don't lift enough weights. He's told us all that everyone in the UK uses too much gear and no one's got any results for it because they're too busy training on their phone and all the rest of it. But he's he still seems it makes sense. And the latest vision from Sav was that you shouldn't do walking lunges, even if you're prepping for a show to bring your glutes out, because it's what girls do. And the reason that you train is you're in the gym for maximum muscle growth. And to do that, you need to overload and fail. And the heart and lungs give out, or your fitness gives out, doing a walking lunge more or before your leg gives out, which actually does make sense. If you do a static one-legged lunge, like in the Smith machine, using one leg at a time, your leg fails. You can't get the bar up, and your muscles fatigued, and then you can change legs. But I've been guilty in walking lunges, and I'm like, but Sav, they get your glutes shredded, mate. And he won't hear it. He won't hear it. So his way's right. It's his gym. So so I train with these 4 lads. They're all a lot younger than me. They call me Dag, actually.
Oh, that's nice.
Nice, yeah.
So which one of their mothers do you know?
That's right. I know their mums really well.
Thought so.
Yeah. So I train with them, and they're all young, and you know, one of them, T's had similar injuries to me. He's had a pec tear or two, and he's probably guilty of lifting too heavy, too fast, and too aggressively, and his muscles are torn in doing so. And Ennis he's come runner-up at the British finals a couple of times and missed out on his pro card a couple of times, and was a really good natural bodybuilder. And now he does the UK BFF shows. And he's very gifted. I mean, the guy runs on. So we'll train. This is before he started his prep. So he what did you eat today? Before we come to the gym, it's like 1, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So he'll have got up and had a bowl of crunchy nut cornflakes with skim milk, though. So that's okay. And then he'll have one of the multi-power glass bottle shakes that I know you enjoy, Rob. After training, they're like full of sugar. They're like milkshake type things.
Yeah, like you get from McDonald's.
And then he might go home and have an evening meal, but he's in really good shape. For that, a lot of people would not look like he does. So he has got the good genetics for it.
He's young, isn't he? He's got to be 25. Because same with my guy who I train. It's fantastic genetics. Literally doesn't eats 3 times a day, if that, and not even that clean. It must be. How old is Ennis?
I'm not sure. He's probably about that sort of age, or 27 maybe, something like that.
Damn.
And then the other guy, Charlie, is he's a baby of the group. He's slightly younger than everyone, but he's really tall, and he's got very long levers, so he's got a long way down in the squat. He's got a tough like end of the deal there with all the long exercises. But he's a joker of the crew. Do you know what I mean? So it makes a good 4, and out of 4, probably only 2 to 3 people turn up at the same time. Because everyone's got work schedules and lives to live and whatever. And so there's the worst thing about a training partner is being let down at the last minute. So you're waiting to do legs, and then they don't turn up, or they let you know they're not turning up, and kind of floors your workout. And a lot of the time in the past, I always had a decent training partner, and I think it's really worth its weight in gold. And probably for the last year and a half, 2 years, I didn't have, like you, Jeff, I hadn't had a training partner at all. And to be honest, when you're motivated and you've got your workout plan, like you're saying, you want to do it your way in a sequence, it's fantastic. You put your headphones on, you can get out of life and find a space and really like get rid of some demons, or really get into your zone in the workout. But there's also times, like you say, Rob, where the motivation is just, you go through the motions. Times you just hit these, just feels like a ritual that you've done too many times. And with me, unfortunately, I've had a load of injuries in the time I've been bodybuilding, and I've just had a knee operation, and my kneecap had pulled over to the side from years of trying to work the width, or to get the outer sweep of your quads by doing everything with your feet together to get an outer sweep. It basically made one side of my leg more dominant and pulled my kneecap slightly out of alignment. So I kept getting locked in a bent position, and it was very painful. So I had to shave a bit of the kneecap away and do a lateral release to straighten it up. And it's took some time to come back from that, more time than I thought it would. But I'm squatting and pressing, and I can do all the exercises again now. It's probably took about 4 months, and it was really painful. And I've torn off my pec and bicep and had back injuries and stuff in the past. I even broke my back. But this was like aggravatingly painful all the time, because obviously you're walking around, or just to move your leg when you're asleep in bed, it would wake you up. It was crazy, and that was kind of getting depressing. So fortunately, these lads sort of turned up at the right time, and they didn't mind me sort of like tagging along and doing lighter weights and things like that in the leg day. And now I fly past them, they can't even keep up with me, and I've only got one leg. Losers. Losers.
Wow, that's cool.
Sometimes when you have that setback, you come back from an injury, or even just some kind of personal issues or something like that. You have that drive that you didn't have before, right? So you're so frustrated and you want to train and you want to squat. I think you know, in one aspect, I think it's good that you have that time away, and then you get to reappreciate, you know, training again.
Yeah, 100%.
Kind of like a new fire for you, so that way, you know, you can start making progress again and you know, surpass where you were. But at the same time, you're still cognizant about the fact that, hey, I did this and this caused injury, so let me make sure that I'm training properly and not having that issue. But again, at the same time, you're like, you know, I'm gonna smoke these young guys on these legs, just you know, what's up. So, you know, it's good to see that you got that taken care of and that you're making the progress.
Yeah, and to be honest, that's exactly what's happened. Like, I actually, you know, got to the point where, and I've always enjoyed training legs, or the battle of it, you know, the challenge. And I was getting to the point where I was like, you probably mentioned there, Rob, about going through the motions. I was just doing the workout I wasn't trying to break barriers. I was just going through there to feel a good workout, and it was starting to get boring. And then obviously you get a setback, like an injury, and then you've had an operation and recovering. And then every week or 2 weeks you see improvement. And it's like, because I couldn't train legs, I so enjoyed doing them again when I could. And, you know, and that's always the way, whatever you can't have in life, you kind of want. But it's worked really well for that. And I'm enthusiastic again about training, seeing where we can get. But so with that, I've got Jeff back on board, which I've worked with a couple of times last year for my prep. And he's like, we kind of think alike and we run things through together. And if you're watching this on YouTube, we look quite alike today, Jeff. I thought I just need to get my glasses. And we've both got a bit of art in the background. I'll just pick her nose there. Look. I see that. Very nice. Yes.
I'm not allowed art in my place. I can't. Not allowed to hang any pictures on the wall. Believe it or not.
Oh,
not
yeah, it was rented.
Yeah.
It's not allowed.
Yeah, not allowed or something like that. Don't know why.
Yeah. I got a lot of holes in my wall where it didn't hang straight.
Yeah, but I drew some quite very large murals on my wall that, in hindsight, I wish I did on canvas that I could take with me.
Yeah, I saw them. You're like the Kai Green over there, decorating your house with these big paintings. They look great. Let's have that side of you.
There's one of my, you know, when you come into my apartment, you come down the front stairs, and it's literally the wall on the landing. So, you know, it's probably about 8 feet wide, and I can't reach the top. So, you know, it's got to be probably like over 7 feet tall. And I'm just thinking, I was like, okay, when I move out of this apartment, how can I cut that wall out and replace it?
Oh, damn.
Is it like those monkey paintings, you know, where they kind of get the paintbrush and they splat it everywhere? Or is it like proper nice art and nice pictures and stuff?
Well, let's go for a walk.
Always
this is
taking
like
us
MTV Cribs at Jeff Surrette's.
I think I let's have a look. Ooh.
This whole wall.
Wow. That's cool.
That is
Who's that? Is that Harley Quinn?
No, it's just some random drawing that I just did and just kind of went with it, but just for reference. So when
cool.
I'm standing, right,
wow.
That's my hand all the way up.
That's big.
So
you must have stood on tiptoes to paint that then.
Yeah.
I'll have to get you to do my hair. Do you reckon you could do that?
He's not that talented, Rob.
Oh, okay, fair enough. I'm not tall enough.
That would make a really cool tattoo, to be honest. That.
Well, I mean, like I've drawn all mine, you know, so I bring in my artwork and I bring it to my artist, and he's the one that puts it all on for me. So all
sweet.
Are my own artwork. So.
Oh, that's cool. That's significant.
Yeah. That's really good. Yeah.
Yeah. So Jeff's obviously another bodybuilder that's covered in tattoos. Do you find that affects placings at shows? How's it go in the US with that kind of thing?
To be honest, well, the last show that I did, you know, I just I wasn't in proper condition. I screwed up my peak and I was very, very flat and watery on stage. And that was
Don't tell me this, Jeff. I'm relying on you.
I won a show as a super heavyweight at 238, and then I tried to drop to heavyweight. So, in hindsight, that was just too much stage weight to drop and then to try to, bounce back from. Plus, just to make weight, I didn't eat for over 24 hours.
Wow.
Oh, man.
It was a gamble, and it just didn't work out. But I mean, sometimes you just gotta, try stuff like that, right? So
yeah.
But it's just, I definitely won't do that again.
Yeah, I mean, in the UK, we have a heavyweight line, or the top line of the heavyweight's 100 kilos. And then anything above it's super heavy. So in the years gone past when I've competed in the UK BFF, which do go by weight, other federations here go by height, which suits me better. I sort of compete about 102, 104, 105, anywhere around them sort of figures. And I've done exactly that. I thought, I'm going to be a really small, super heavyweight. So if I just cut off an arm and lose 3 kilos, when you're already kind of stage ready at 103 or 4, it makes a big difference because you have to really suffer to get down, and your body's suffered for long enough. It doesn't really want to do what it would normally do when you deplete the hell out. It just doesn't respond very well. And then you can't fill up enough and you look soft for it. And you also look a bit drawn, so you're lean as hell, but when you try and pump things through and, you might be backstage thinking you're the most ripped guy backstage and this guy looks a bit soft but then when they flex, everything rocks up hard and pumps up, and you're the same as you was when you walked on in your, your standing sort of quarter turns. Nothing really flexes up, and it's frustrating as hell because you've really suffered that last 3 or 4 kilos. If you didn't need to lose it, kind of has to be muscle really that you've got to pull off at the last week or two, and it suffers. There's a lot of black sort of spots and a lot of dizziness and a lot of all that goes on, but you're doing it for the cause, and that's just part and parcel of life. But every year when I compete, and I haven't not competed for 20 years, but it's strange how you forget how hard them dark days are, and I am actually kind of dreading them moments where you have them days where you get up and you think, oh my God, I've got the whole day to get through till I can go back to bed, and I've only just woke up, and just put my socks on is like knocking the wind out my sails. There is that side of it, which I think everyone goes through, but you get a day of that and then you might get 3 or 4 good days. And it's them low days, I think, that really push your condition. And if it'd be lovely not to suffer any of them, but I have noticed that the conditioning always comes to those that suffer that little bit at some point. It'd be easy not to. I think my last prep with Jeff last year, Rob, I didn't suffer at all. Like, I was in his hands and I got to eat my way into the competition, and it felt almost too easy. It's an odd feeling on the flip side when you don't suffer. And I was speaking to Jamie Johal, who's a really big super heavyweight in the UK. He's got great physique, and he was really unfortunate to not win. I thought he should have won his pro card and the overall at this Two Bros show that he'd done.
Yeah.
But he grew into the show, and he was eating tons and tons of food, and you get your metabolism in the right place and you diet nice and slow and long, it seems to come on side for you. And I think that's what happened there. And I'm just hoping that'll be the cause this season as well. So that's the show I'm doing is 14 weeks away. So I've got no stresses about the diet, and I've got loads of food, and I'm stuffed at the moment. But Jeff is a feeder. I'm sure there should be a show about him where he's feeding all these fat women. But I'd rather be fat and jolly than unhappy, which is what happens towards the end of the show. And you're 11 days out, Jeff. What's the crack over there? How are you feeling?
Yeah, I mean, it's a stark contrast about the amount of food that you get and the amount of food that I take in. The more food I just threw at you, the faster it just kind of burnt off, which is great. You know, I'm at the point where, you know, most of my meals are nothing but, you know, 8 ounces of haddock and some asparagus.
Wow.
Wow.
Oh, smell you later.
Wouldn't like to be your toilet.
But, you know, this prep's been a lot different than other ones because I did start leaner. So when I had to start prep, I actually had to increase my food because I was only eating 2 or 3 times a day because I was really just busy with work. So then once I got into the 6 meals a day and everything was just kind of moving along, it wasn't until maybe like 6 weeks out that I really had to start, you know, pushing the food lower and start adding in more cardio. I didn't do cardio until 8 weeks out because I kept leaning out. But I know for me, you know, my body fat is just very stubborn. And my metabolism, it doesn't just speed up like some people's do. So I'm one of those people that I just have to suffer no matter what, and I know that. But at the same time, as I do more and more shows, I'm a bit more in tune with what I can and can't do. So fortunately, you know, I don't have to eat fish for too long. You know, it's only the last probably switched that out like 2 weeks ago. You know, like around the 4-week mark, you know, I was still having steak twice a day. You know, so I was like, sweet, this is easy. You know, I'm not a huge carb person anyway, so me having like no carbs during the day and everything, you know, it never bothers me. So it's but you know, I'm getting tired of fish right now, but it's moving along, and I'm probably going to be my best condition by far. So I'm just excited, and I just want to keep pushing it and see where I end up.
So give people that are listening to this podcast a bit of an overview of what you do for prep, because I know there's lots of people out there that are really interested. And then in contrast, Rob, what you're doing after Jeff's finished with your guy.
Okay.
So you mentioned you didn't do much cardio, but then you bring it in. Loads of people are in this conflict of the best cardio style to do. What's your thoughts on that, and what have you done?
So the thing is it's going to vary from person to person, obviously, you know, and that kind of, you know, you learn from working with that person. Same thing with, you know, how much carbs they can handle, how they handle fats, things like that. You know, each person is going to be very unique in the way they process all their food or how they train. You know, some people, they think they train hard, but they don't. Some people train so hard that we don't really need to bring in as much cardio, you know. Ideally, you know, cardio is just a tool. You know, if we could not do any cardio and just train and have a perfect diet, I mean, that would be ideal, of course, because now you're not worrying about, you know, potentially losing any muscle size, you know, but unfortunately, you know, that's just not going to be the case. I think, you know, the best cardio, hands down, is the one that you get in consistently. So I personally like fasted cardio because I like to get up and it's just kind of a way for me to just start my day and kind of clear my head, plan out what I need to do. But at the same time, you know, I know people, they have a lot busier schedules. You know, like I work for myself, so, you know, I have a very open schedule. I remember when I was working in the corporate world, you know, where I had to take the train into Boston, and I worked for the Treasury, and I took the train home, and everything was very time constrained. You know, I had to get cardio in and stuff when I needed to. And the key is that you want to do it in a state where you have less energy calories stored in the body or just taken in, so that it doesn't have to burn what you gave it already, right? So that's why fasted cardio is good, because you have the least amount of you know, glycogen and everything in the body. But that being said, you know, another effective way to do it would be post-workout, you know, because your workout just burns out a bunch of glycogen, so now you're already in a fat-burning state, you know, so that's very efficient too. So it just depends on the person. But I mean, I always try to rotate their energy calories based off of certain things as well. So if I know they're going to do cardio at certain times, then we can make adjustments for that as well. So I don't think there's a best time to do cardio per se. It's what fits that person's lifestyle overall.
Yeah. Well, my guy's slightly different because of his age. He's 25 years old. If anything, it's hard to keep weight on him. So what I'm doing with him is I totally up his fats. I'm not even going to bother doing cardio with him until possibly 2 to 3 weeks out, maybe 4 weeks out, seeing how he looks. There's literally no point. So if anything, my job is to keep him fat and make sure his fats are high, and keep the training with him. I'm going to keep the training more towards the high mass volume side of type training. So I'll be quite careful of how I sort of train him. So obviously the latter weeks leading into the show can't go as heavy. There's not enough water and fat in the joints. Plus you're much more likely to get injured. So rather than that, I'll drop his weights down to 75% of his maximums, and keep his rep range quite high, 20, 25 rep range, that sort of thing. And again, it all depends, as you said, Jeff, it all depends on the individual person. You can't actually, if it was for me, it'd be completely different. I would be starting cardio 16 weeks out. So that's me, because I'm similar to you, Jeff. I wish I was more like Neale, where I could eat what I liked and it would be great. But no, I'm old now. I'm 46 years old now. So there's just no way, you can have a fast metabolism, and by putting those carbs in, oh my gosh, I mean, you just hold your body literally now. My body holds onto carbs like there's no tomorrow. It really does. So like you said, it's just all about the individual. You take that individual and then you work according to that individual's metabolism, which is why your prep, Jeff, is so different to how you prep Neale. It's completely different. Neale's just jamming in carbs and is happy as anything, and then there's you just all quiet going 11 days. It's quite funny, I have to admit. It makes me laugh.
Well, the thing is, people that say they have a faster metabolism, and you are giving them the carbs and their body's starting to recomp. One thing that people don't realize is if their body's recomping, they've gained a little bit of muscle. Well, all of a sudden that's a new caloric expenditure for the body. It's more active tissue. Their metabolism, which is already fast, gets faster. So, all right, well, you have to feed them more. Or at times, I know with Neale, it got to the point where he was burning through his carbs so quickly. We had to start adding some dietary fats to slow down the absorption. And it was just crazy because, you give them 100 grams of carbs, and all of a sudden you have to feel hypo. What? And,
yeah.
But it's all factors to consider too. One of the things that I like to do is I like to track my blood glucose, so I can see how fast I'm clearing it, and that's something that's helped me to adjust my body and know how much carbs I can take in. So every now and then I'll go hypo, and I know exactly what I need to take in. But it's so rare for me, but I'm very comfortable sitting at a blood glucose of like 61. I forget what it is and the other numbers, but it is very low, and some people, they feel awful at that. If I can stay there, I know I'm a great fat burner. But at the same time, when I know where my fasted blood glucose is, how fast I'm clearing glucose, it allows me to actually take in an appropriate amount of carbs and know exactly where I need to sit, where I need to peak. So I'm not just cramming in carbs and hoping for the best. We actually have some data to support what we're doing and why. And it tells a lot of things as far as like hydration and stuff as well. So a lot of people don't take that into account. They might take in all these carbohydrates, but if they don't have the water and sodium to transport it, well, it's just kind of sitting. So. It's a lot of variables, so it's fun to work with the different people, see how they change, and to just be able to sit there and assess each person individually and come up with a solution. It's always challenging, and it's never the same from year to year with the same person either.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, we worked out last year with Jeff. I never thought I could eat fats. I always thought they smoothed me out, but coconut oil was like in every meal just to slow down, slow the food transit down. Otherwise, I was eating a load of carbs, like nearly 100 grams, and then feeling like I'm gonna, go hypo, and I'll get the cold sweats and feel like I'd done a massive shot of insulin and not eating anything, which is kind of how the carbs were affecting me, you know. So with the fats in, it slowed that process down, and we had more of a balance of it. And I've also found, obviously, by adding some fats, you don't have to eat as many calories from carbs to do the same effect. But I mean, I'm hoping for that, because there's nothing nicer than having to just bucket load food down here to keep you stable and your metabolism's, you know, burning through it. And I worked with Jeff a couple of years now, and his blood glucose monitoring thing is crazy. Once you get used to doing it, I could actually feel what my reading would be prior to me doing it. I had a good understanding after a while of doing it. So it's a bit like where you say, oh, I've got to eat 200 grams of chicken, and you weigh it forever, and then you then start getting it almost spot on without weighing it, because you're used to cutting it to a certain size. I could kind of find that. I think blood glucose is down, and to start with, I'd take a reading, it'd be really low, and I'd be like, oh, I better eat something. And then I bet my reading's about, I think it's different in the UK. It goes in single digits. I think it's like 3.5 is probably about 66 in the States, something like that. And it's really low. And I'd know that it would be time to eat. And then I'd check blood glucose, and it was. And it's another way of you monitoring, I think, your progress. So with your food. So I've always been like an avid fan of the old fashioned stand on the scale first thing in the morning to give a base idea of if you're making changes in your body fat, because obviously weight on a scale isn't determining your body fat, but it's pretty important. It's pretty hard in all 20 years of helping people and myself get in shape. If the scale doesn't go down, body fat is not coming with it, you know. The amount of times I've spoke to people just as a gym owner, and they've been doing a diet, you know, just a sort of standard diet, not a prep diet. And they'll say, oh, how's the diet going? That's going all right. I'm getting leaner. I'm not losing any weight, but I'm definitely getting leaner. I must be putting on muscle and losing fat. That's why the scales are the same. And I'm like, man, it'd be lovely if it was that quick to put muscle on. But muscle don't come on in a week or 2 weeks. It takes a long time, you know, and they're like, oh, so you're not really making any progress. But you want to see this circus mirror, do you know what I mean? And you know, I get it a lot, especially at the start of prep with my clients that I have. And you know, when you're fluffy at the start of a prep, each week they're so keen to show you what they look like without the shirt on, and each week I'm scratching my head a little bit to see a difference, because there's too much fluff, and the scales don't really, even if they move at that far out, it doesn't show necessarily on the body to start with. You know, so really the posing bit is kind of, depends on the person's body fat, but you need to start seeing at least the sort of top 2 set of abs before you can see if things are moving in the mirror, really, for a stage, that is. So like, as we've discussed, Robbie don't like carbs, or they don't like him. He probably likes them, but they don't like him. And I actually don't like carbs, but they like me. So I have to eat a lot of them, but it gets frustrating eating that much rice and potatoes and stuff. And you, Jeff, where do you sit in it with you know, your body type? Where do you sit?
I prefer to have lower to moderate carbs personally, and keep some dietary fats in. I know now, after doing it for so long, my body handles the carbs much more efficiently. But at the same time, just personally, I just don't like eating that much food. You have much higher satiety rate with fats in there than you do, you know, with the carbs. So I find that I'm kind of in the middle at this point now, where but I mean, you know, my high carb day is like something like moderate day, you know. So, but to me, it's still high, you know. But I just find that, you know, as long as, you know, I'll never be that guy that's pushing like 1,000 carbs in a day, or even 800, which I've done before, but you know, it's just so uncomfortable. I find my body doesn't need it. So I can stay in like a mid-level, you know, moderate fat, and you know, feel pretty good overall with energy levels. And then I just kind of taper carbs down or up, depending on, you know, what I'm trying to do.
And what about like, people will want to listen? Obviously, the big thing is about getting a 6-pack in the majority of the world. that aren't trying to get as muscular as possible. So they're interested in cardio. The best time to do it, which you've discussed, is the time you can be consistent, regardless if it's first thing in the morning or if it's HIIT. But also, you know, people want the quick pill, you know, like let's take this pill and get a result. And everyone's looking for that fast buck. And it obviously in the supplement industry sells a ton of these things, and they all work like anything will work if you stick to it, or they'll work for a period of time. But in bodybuilding, what drugs or over the counter, which you can buy, which aren't drugs, do you think are the most important or worthwhile? And then the same goes to you, Rob.
So what over the counter, like supplements that you can get?
So yeah, so something you could buy from like a GNC, and then something as a drug like you couldn't, which works like T3 or DMP, or which of these things do you think are really relevant? Because in the UK, people smash clenbuterol like it's, you know, a Smartie, and you know, and personally, I hate that stuff. It sends you all jittery and feel terrible on it. Whereas people, well, you know, it works for some people, and some people it doesn't. Personally, for me, I don't really do anything in terms of my body fat. Just makes me feel a bit jarred. And when you're hanging on a prep diet, sometimes feeling jarred is better than feeling tired. So that's where it comes in. But it doesn't really do a huge amount, I don't think, in terms of burning fat. Whereas T3, I think, works really well, although it's tarnished for being quite unsafe if it's not used properly. And then obviously, like one of the kind of major unsafe known drugs is DMP, which, you know, I've had a little spout with. I think we all have, and it definitely works really well as long as you're very cautious, is the way I've looked at it. But what's your views on them, and then over the counter drugs that you could buy, which people that aren't willing or don't want to do anything that's more hard would use? And for me, the only sort of over the counter thing I see that works is caffeine and your Himby. But you know, what's your views on that, you guys?
So I mean, if you're looking for just like straight kind of fat burning, I mean, yeah, yohimbine works, but you know, it has to be yohimbine hydrochloride, not the herbal form, which they try to sell some places. It just doesn't work. You know, you can still buy like the caffeine and ephedrine over the counter in some places. I mean, so the ECA stack is definitely going to work. You know, you can buy the injectable L-carnitine over the counter, you know, and that definitely works. Versus, you know, the oral bioavailability of L-carnitine, you have to take so much for it to actually do something. It's just astronomical. So that's kind of like a gray area, I would say, more so, because now you have to do the injection, but it is still an over the counter, and it does work. Works best when you can load it with insulin, but again, insulin's not an over the counter. It will work without it, but you just have to do it longer term. I mean, aside from that, any of these fat burners and stuff, I mean, really all they are is they're stimulants with a little bit of herbs and stuff that have shown to slightly increase certain things, which could potentially facilitate something down the road. I haven't seen anything that's proven effective like an ephedrine, caffeine, and absinthe stat ever since. So, I mean, if we're talking over-the-counter fat burners, that's the only one if you can still buy it. Plus the yohimbine. As far as, you know, drugs, I mean, T3 is a fantastic drug. The problem is you have people just pushing it because it's basically metabolism in a bottle. You know, a little goes a long way with that, you know, and even to the point where you don't even have to take it every day to start. You know, you can take it every third day, every other day. It's that strong because now you're actually having an overactive thyroid, if you will. But the problem is then people push the limits because you know, these coaches, they don't know how to diet people, so they're just throwing all these drugs, and cutting all this food, and throwing all this other crap at these people, and it just wrecks them. But a little goes a long way. Same with Clen. Clen works. You know, it works better with T3, but people take way too much. You know, the last time I took it, I was taking 20 micrograms a day. You know, and I know a girl that was at 180. You know, I'm like, that's bad. You know, and people don't think twice about it. Yet they frown on me for teaching people about using DMP, which has no effect on your cardiac system. You know, and it actually resensitizes the body to insulin, and it actually is shown to inhibit cancer cells. You know, so there's all these benefits, but yes, it can kill you.
Yeah.
Where, you know, it's very taboo because of that, but ultimately, I find that it's actually a safe way to do it if you, one, know the source and know the dosing is accurate, and two, you have someone that can point you in the right direction and teach you what it's doing in the body and what countermeasures you can take proactively to avoid a lot of the side effects. I think another often overlooked thing is actually T4. If you get blood work done, these people are just slamming down T3. Well, if your T3 and T4 levels are out of whack, taking more T3 is not going to help, but taking a little bit of T4 might, right? So there's a lot of variables to that. But I think the problem is that you have these people that are just throwing drugs at people because they work, but they don't know how they work in conjunction with the body or with each other. So they're just doing more. And it will work, but of course there's repercussions to that. So, there's a lot of good ways to use the drugs, but I think the best way is to have an appropriate coach that can teach you so that you understand what you're doing and not just say, oh, here, take this. And you say, why? And they can't explain it. Probably don't.
Yeah.
And when do you think is the best times to implement these? Because if you're fat, there's sort of two ways of looking at it, I think. If you're fat and you take fat burning drugs, whether they're over the counter or drugs for it, they're going to aim to metabolize and burn the fat you've got. So you're safer at holding on to muscle whilst you're fat, obviously. So, the counter to that is with cardio. I think you can smash the arse out of cardio, do HIIT or work as hard as you can when you're fat and fluffy, because that's a buffer for losing muscle. Whereas if you're really lean and where you are 11 days out from a show, if you do a load of HIIT training or you took a load of T3 or Clean or whatever, it could potentially, whilst your body fat's so low and there's not much to take off, start looking at taking muscle with it, which you don't want. Or would you naturally do the diet till it runs its course, add cardio till it runs its course, add more cardio if you need to, and then think, okay, we've kind of got to that point now where we should add something else, and that could be a fat burner? Well, how's your way of looking at that?
So, again, that's going to vary from person to person, depending on how fat they are, the amount of time that they have, what they're willing to do, et cetera, et cetera. I agree, if someone's coming to me and they're a little bit heavier or whatnot, yeah, we're going to crank cardio now. We're not going to build up on cardio. Like, you're fat now, we're going to stop pushing. As far as using the compounds, the biggest thing that I always say would be, you don't take them all at once. You always implement one at a time and you do it strategically. For example, I would be more apt to start a prep, pushing something with a ketogenic diet and some DMP, which is going to, take off the fat, to get them resensitized to insulin. And then, down the line, start implementing potentially, the clenbuterol and the T3 and things like that. Whereas, you can't just, be, I couldn't take DMP at 3 weeks out for the show because, quite frankly, I'm just going to be so flat and watery from it. It's just going to be detrimental. And I don't think that it works as well for that last little percentage as it does take off a greater percentage earlier in prep. Same thing, like you said, I wouldn't want to be pushing T3 going into, peak week and stuff like that. Same with clenbuterol, because now it's going to be harder to fill out. So, there's a structure in there based off of each individual person. So, it depends on how far behind they are, what they're willing to do. But ultimately, I wouldn't want to be going into a show at least the last 2 or 3 weeks on clen for sure off that. No Yohimbe, and depending on what they've done with the T3, I'd have that to minimal dosing or off completely so that we could fill them out properly. But again, at that point, they should be lean enough that they shouldn't have to be on the T3, which could potentially lose that muscle. And again, if you have an elevated thyroid and you're trying to fill somebody up, that's going to be much more difficult.
That's true. And what about you, Robbie? Starting from
well, it's interesting. For me, it was interesting when I first started and started on a diet and stuff and getting ready for a show. It would usually always be the ECA stack, ephedrine, caffeine, aspirin. Aspirin is probably not even worth anything actually now. The idea of aspirin was simply to thin the blood, but I don't think anyone uses it now. As long as you've got a 10-to-1 ratio of caffeine to ephedrine, it normally works. But what I found personally now, after all of these years, is if I go to I call it a high stimulant stack, and I find I lose far too much like muscle or weight too quickly, because obviously it suppresses the appetite as well. So therefore you're not even, you're not just not going to be eating as much food in either. So the problem is, what I was having was, I'd be taking ephedrine caffeine in the morning, and by the time 8 p.m. rolled round, I would be binge eating because I was so hungry, so thirsty, all of the above, because obviously it had worn off now in my system. So I found, to me, that was no good. I did like the combination of mixing T3s with T4s. I found that you got a really nice effect, shall we say, because what happened is the T3 would interact with the T4, causing it to be equivalent to like 3 T3 tablets. But that's just, it would be a lot safer than taking 3 T3 tablets, because if you took that like pretty much every day, then you were going to have to use them for the rest of your life, because you would shut your metabolism down, you shut your thyroid down pretty much completely. I did take Clen for a bit, but I was like Neale on it. I just found myself too jittery, too kind of excitable. What did work well for me at the start, which I thought was brilliant, was your Himbine, which you mentioned. I just remember sitting there one time, literally being almost spaced off my nut, like literally just out of it, sweating through like 2 t-shirts, just sitting there doing nothing, just give you kind of these mad cold sweats. And then you're looking around thinking, where am I? You feel just weird on that stuff. That stuff is like magic mushrooms or something. You're just way out of it, just on a different plane. So I totally enjoyed, I have to admit, that was one of my favorites, your Himbine and stuff. And just to let everyone know, we are not recommending here that anyone takes DMP. Okay, just to get that down. Definitely, just to get that down. I have used DMP in the past and stuff, and I really did get some really quite good effects out of it. The problem is that with people is DMP heats up your system, heats up your actual body, and it doesn't allow your body to come down, or you've got to know how to get cold again, because if you don't know how to get cold again, that's what can actually kill you. You're not playing around with DMP. That's what people don't realize. It's extremely effective. It was actually found, I believe it was not 1920s, wasn't it, when they were mining for TNT, for explosives, and they found that all the miners and all the workers in there were getting ripped and really lean, and thinking, what are these guys doing? And they were actually just breathing in these kind of DNP fumes and stuff. And then someone decided to make it into a pill and stuff, and as a fat burning pill, and getting ripped and all the rest of it. And it actually was legal for a while. I think it was legal for about 20 years or something like that, until all these people started dying from it. So then they decided, I think we shouldn't make this legal anymore. And actually, Jeff, yes, I've heard of a new non-invasive blood glucose test. I think it's just being developed, so that's interesting. So you don't have to be bloodletting all the time. So just to let you know, there's something new out, I think, on the market. Say again?
I've heard them discussing it. Something in the works. I haven't really seen much, in the concrete evidence that they have it perfected and this and that yet. But I mean, I tell you, that'll be nice.
It would be, yeah. Because I can see why you wear the red T-shirt. It makes perfect sense now. So yeah, it makes sense. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I'm actually doing my best now to take my clients off with these pre-workout drinks and these high stimulants and stuff, because I feel that eventually it will actually lead to adrenal fatigue in the long run, where you literally nothing works. You'll be taking in coffees, caffeines, you'll be taking in so much stuff, and you'll actually get more and more tired. So for me, I agree with you in the sense I'm pretty much will go as natural as possible. I think that's usually the best way. But if you are going to start these things, then you do them early on in your prep, and then as you're getting in closer and closer to the show, you should be using less and less and less. You know, if anything, I'm one of these firm believers that less is actually more, especially if you can get a good effect. If your system is clean enough and your body's actually healthy enough, then minuscule amounts of things are going to have big effects on your body. And that's rather than what people tend to do is they overshoot it. They take something, it works, so they take more, they take more, they take more. And it, you know, you get to this plateau level where more actually doesn't actually mean you're going to get better results.
And one of the things that people don't quite realize is just, you know, they take all these pre-workouts and they take these energy drinks and take all this coffee. You know, all those stimulants, what they're doing is they're actually hindering your actual digestion. You know, so if you can limit, you know, I try not to take in as much caffeine at all. My digestion through the years has just been, you know, so much more improved. And, you know, not only the way you digest your food, but, you know, your immune system's, you know, directly linked with your digestive system. So, you know, I found that, you know, I mean, I'm not someone that gets sick, but, you know, when I work with clients and I get them off a lot of these stimulants and stuff, they find that they're not getting sick as much. I was like, well, yes, because now you're actually digesting food a lot more. People don't take that into consideration too. I mean, and you know, ultimately everything that we do, you know, is going to rely on our digestion, because if we can't digest our protein, we can't digest our carbs and stuff, our physique is not going to do what we want, regardless of what we're throwing drugs. So as much as they think these drugs are doing all this great work and stuff, all of a sudden it's backlogging their digestion, and all of a sudden they come off the drug, their digestion is already screwed. So now all of a sudden they're like, oh, now what? You know, so you know, I definitely agree with that, and trying to keep things you know, much more on the natural level as much as possible, of course. And you know, keeping things in a very moderate and strategic plan when you are working with people. So.
And then your final 11 days, Jeff, what does that look like? Tell people, because people have heard the word banded around peak week, and obviously you're almost there. What does that involve to you? Do you do a depletion and a load, which is the old school way of doing it? I mean, that's the way when Robbie was competing. I'm sure you've done that, Rob. You depleted down and then you drink and eat a load of carbs the last day or so. And is that what you're going to do, or are you going to feed in slowly, and what do you do with your water? What's the process?
I mean, first of all, I hate the term peak week. You know, it implies that it's going to do some kind of magic. You know, I mean, realistically, you know, by the time, like right now, I'm depleted. I'm depleted every day. You know, so what's going to happen if I deplete more? Well, yeah, you know, you can overcome, you know, you super compensate with carbs and this and that, but I mean, it's only going to be to a certain degree. So ultimately, you know, I don't really change anything right now. Again, you know, I'm eating, you know, no carbs, just or fruit and vegetables for the most part. So, you know, my training's high volume anyways right now. So, I mean, I'm depleted. I'm not going to get any more depleted by trying to do anything super crazy. But what I could do is actually deplete myself so much and have a harder time to carb up. So this year, you know, I'm going to slowly bring in carbs, you know, a little bit longer, so that I can pay a lot more attention to how my body's changing. So instead of just doing, you know, the traditional carbing up for like a day or two, typically what I would do is for like Saturday show, I would bring in some fats on Wednesday to help fill out intracellular triglycerides and prime the body to accept the carbs. Then I would carb up all day on Thursday, and then Friday I would gauge based on my condition how long I would carb up for, whether it's the full day or half day or what have you. And that would be like my traditional approach. This year I'm going to go with, you know, bringing carbs in basically either Sunday or Monday, just slowly bringing it in. I am flying on Wednesday, so I'll play that day by ear because I do hold a little bit of water. But I don't think it's significant. Plus, I have plenty of time to take it off prior to the show. But, you know, that definitely won't be like a high carb day. Water intake, I keep high. I'll increase it slightly, maybe 25% for a couple of days, then maybe like another 50%. You know, it's not anything drastic. I don't quite believe in water loading. I mean, you should be drinking a fair amount of water, you know, throughout your whole prep anyway. So I'm sitting around like 2 gallons a day anyways. So me drinking 3 or 4 is kind of just silly. But I might go up to say like 2.5 by Friday. Then at some point, I'll cut water down. I don't cut salt out, especially while I'm carving up, so I'll keep my sodium very high. And then what I do is I just cut it down, with the amount that I use, it's quite a bit. So me just literally not adding very much to my food or just salting every other meal will drop it down significant to play its part on aldosterone. But nothing too crazy. Then I always reintroduce a little bit of sodium the day of the show, and that's kind of it. It's not I'm not trying to do anything crazy because like I'm in shape, I'm very flat, so I just have to make sure that I'm filling myself up enough, and just making sure that I can shift the water. But I mean, when you're in shape, you shouldn't really be holding that much water anyways. So, I'm not looking to do this like crazy lose 10 pounds of water or anything trick to make me look like a different person. It's maybe like a 5% increase of how I look. But too many people kind of rely on this to be like their game changer. And quite frankly, they're just not in shape. So, at this point, it's just kind of keep going through the process, and then just slowly bring in the carbs. And, I'm not focusing on my weight. So it might go up, it might not, I don't know. But I'm right on that cusp of heavyweight, super heavyweight. But I'm not going to worry about it. Whatever I weigh in at, I'll weigh in at. Because I don't want to. I'm just going to go by appearance and make sure that I'm in my best condition. Because at the end of the day, the more conditioned I am, even if I'm a smaller, super heavyweight, I'm still going to hold my own against someone bigger. So, it's just at this point, it's just kind of playing by the mirror. Checking my blood glucose, seeing where I'm at, seeing how my body's responding to things, and making the adjustments.
And do you do any of these, like in the UK, what I see, which I find slightly frustrating, is that people have prepped all year, like you're saying, you're in shape already, you come into the last sort of day or so before the show, and then I've been to so many competitions, and these competitors are just smashing rice cakes with peanut butter and honey and jam and all sorts of things, and boxes of Krispy Kremes are flying around, and I'm like, it's to me, it's such a gamble to throw all this in like hours before you're due on stage in the hope that you're going to be some super like filled athlete, where you should be looking pretty much there on the food duet, in my opinion. And even worse so, I see like bikini girls doing this, which is crazy because they're not trying to get that skin tight, bulging vein look that bodybuilders are, but they've been taught by a bodybuilder, this is how you do it. So they ruin their physique and get bloated, which kind of comes with, and I hold my hands up. I've done that in my early years because that's what everyone done around you. And we didn't have coaches in my day, whereas today you've got someone to ask. Back then, you'd ask someone and they was a pro, they didn't want to give out their secrets, So what do you do? Anything slightly different on the day of the show? I'd imagine you do things which are really easy on your digestion, and apart from that, it's pretty much the same drill.
It's the day of the show. There's nothing that irks me more than like seeing those bikini girls like slamming down these rice cakes. Well, first of all, it's not going to digest in time to really change your physique, and that's not even going to be the look you want. If you've done everything right, and even if you're flat or anything like that, the problem show day is generally 99% of the time not a carbohydrate issue. 99% of the time, it's a sodium or water issue. I don't know how many times I see someone and they're like, "Oh, I don't have veins," and they're slamming down all these carbs. I'm like, that's not going to happen, right? Which is why I like checking my blood glucose. So now you have all these carbs in the body, and you're looking flat. And it's like, well, I just carved up. Why am I so flat? Well, because you cut sodium and you didn't take in enough water, so there's nothing to transport it into the muscle. So the day of the show, ultimately I like to have a breakfast, and I really try not to eat anything else. If I eat anything, it's typically I have some fats, because I can run off the fats, but I'm not tapping into any of the glycogen stores that I just spent a couple days filling. But when I have a little bit of fats, you know, the satiety is key because I don't want to be eating a lot of stuff. I don't want to have a lot of stuff in my stomach the day of the show. So the day of the show is really, really simple. I mean, just enough so that you're not hungry, but you really, it's more monitoring water intake than anything else, making sure that you stay crisp, or maybe a little bit of sodium. And then if anything, I'll have like a really fast acting carbohydrate, like right before the stage. I don't pump up a lot, but you know, a little bit of some apple pie filling or something like that with some sodium, you know, right before you line up, you know, it will help with some vascularity. But aside from that, I keep it as simple as possible. Again, digestion is key. There's nothing worse than having a big bloated stomach because your body's trying to digest everything that you just threw in. And again, you know, it's the problem is, like I said, 99% of the time, it's not a food issue or a carb issue. They either don't have enough sodium or they don't have enough water. So the day of the show is really, really quite simple.
There was a question.
Sorry, Rob, go on, mate.
So, and I was a question for Jeff because he's got about 5 or 6 shows coming up. I find that if I carb up or deplete and then carb up for shows, I would find it. I used to find it very, very tough. So by the time I hit my 4th or 5th show, I was so out of whack, or my body was so out of sorts that I couldn't actually. It didn't actually work for me. The carb, you know, the depleting and then the loading up and the depleting and the loading up. So with a lot of shows, personally, Jeff, I found that I would go into them flat, if you like, with minimal kind of carbing up. Maybe, like you said, just that breakfast in the morning and the dropping of the water the night before, because sometimes I found it would take my body a week or sometimes 2 weeks if I did a hard load, for example, a hard deplete followed by a hard load. So my question really was for you, because you've got like what 5-6 shows coming up now.
When you go from show to show, I mean, it's a little different because, you know, for example, I do the show in Vegas, and then the following weekend I'm going to do a show here in Connecticut. Right. So now, you know, if you just have to kind of step back and think about it. You know, I'm not going to do another hard deplete and try to carb up within a week.
Yeah.
Right. You know, so I just depleted and carved up. You know, I should be able to keep carbs at a certain level, stay crisp. Right. You know, I might have to drop it Wednesday when I fly back home just to keep the water off. But for the most part, you know, I might actually have to keep, you know, carbs at a very moderate rate, literally the whole time going into that next show. So there's not really a carb up. It's just you just kind of toast the show with carbs. Yeah. Slight manipulation with like sodium and water at the end, and maybe a little bit of, you know, switching from carbs to fats, you know, the day of the show, something like that. Then I have about a 2-week break, 1 or 2 week break before the next show, which is a smaller show that I'm not going to peak 100% for. So again, I would use a similar approach to that, where it'd be a very modest, you know, approach to that. But the next day after that, I start depleting for the bigger show the following weekend. You know, so if you could step back and objectively look at how you're going to approach each show, then you can tailor it, you know. But again, so from Vegas to Connecticut, you know, I'm going to ride the carbs out because I'm already going to be crisp and in shape. You know, I'm not going to go out after the show and slam all this junk food. You know, the next morning I'm at the gym doing my cardio, I'm getting my training in, but I'll utilize those carbs and I'll be able to, you know, kind of actually maybe even grow a little bit going to that second show and maybe even come in a little bit fuller. Right. But if I were to try to, you know, deplete right away and try to fill out, I mean, there'd be no way. You know, I would be, you know, horrible.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think some of that as well is magnified by whether you use a diuretic or not. So if you use a diuretic into a show, you can look amazing if it goes well. But obviously, the water's been drawn down, will want to be retained back after the show. And if you've only got a week to try and get it back off, it's hard work. That's a lot of sweating is needed and a lot of water to drink to sort of flush that back through, which I've done in the past. Are you looking at how do you stand on diuretics? Do you use them with everyone or don't, or do you use them yourself?
I mean, the thing with diuretics is less is more. You know, because at the same time, people think diuretics are going to be an answer, but they can literally diuretics, they just pull water. That's all I know. So once you're already dry, I mean, it's just going to keep pulling water, so it's going to pull water out of the muscles and so, everyone just, I can be a little bit more crisp, really, I mean, the lowest amount that you can take, ideally, if I could take someone and just use like a dandelion root or like an uva ursi, something like over the counter, awesome, right? Because it's not going to be a rebound from that because it's a lot more natural. But, unfortunately, a lot of people, they want to use something stronger, but, very, very moderate to very low. And again, because you can manipulate your sodium and water intake and carbs to flush out most of the water. Plus, if you're in proper condition, again, water shouldn't be a huge concern. Obviously, it's going to vary from person to person. Some people can be very, very lean with still more water. But again, there's that fine line where, you want to use just enough to clean up any excess water, but not actually pull it from the muscles and lose fullness. So to me, ideally, if I didn't have to use it with someone, I wouldn't. But typically it would be a very low dose, maybe like a quarter of a diazide here and there, just at the end. I expect people, if it's a Saturday show, I expect people to have a little film of water when they go to bed Friday night. If you go to bed Friday night crisp and dry, you're going to wake up flat 100%. If you go to bed with just a little slight film of water, you should wake up pretty much where you need to be. Right. If you wake up and you're really flat, typically I have someone drink, 1 or 2 liters of water, maybe a little bit of sodium, and they bounce back within about 45 minutes. Just because they've either taken too much diuretics and it flattened out a little bit, so now we have to just bring that water in. But again, like I said, less is more, and less chance of screwing anything up without taking too many.
Good shout. And Robbie, I know you was a fan of the hardcore Lasix in your day.
Well, actually, I used to have, that stuff is dangerous, man. I think they give it to you to was it prevent heart attacks or something along those sorts of lines. So if you actually know what they're actually used for, you realize how kind of dangerous they are. Yeah, I mean, I guess back in the day and stuff, a lot of times I would come in quite out of shape, should we say. I look like what was it? I look like the Marshmallow Man from Ghostbusters. So yeah, for me, I'd bang in like a little bit of Lasix or furosemide and literally lose about 4 kilos in about 4 hours, just just constantly peeing. I mean, it was horrible and stuff. But I'd make the weight sometimes, and I'd come in, but I'd be flat as anything, and it wouldn't look good. It wouldn't look good. So I totally agree with you, Jeff. It's just less is more, definitely. Saying that though, there's a few sort of drugs that have kind of disappeared. One that seems to have disappeared back in the day when I was using was one called orometin. Have you heard of that one? And I wonder where it's gone. Do you remember that, Neale? Orometin?
I remember the name. I can't remember what it's for. I do remember the name.
It's kind of a hard cutter. It's a hard diuretic used 3 days before a show. A bit like the sodium sparing ones that people use now.
Like adaptation, you mean?
Yeah, a bit like, but more powerful. I think it was a bit more powerful. Orometin, it did really kind of dry the body out quite nicely, I found. To me, that was one of the safer ones, but it was weird because I remember asking around for it, and literally, I don't think I've seen it for, well, I'd say 15 years. It's just literally just disappeared off the face of the earth. Have you heard of that, Jeff?
I've heard of it before. I think it's one of those ones where there's a vast array of different diuretics, and they actually have like medical relevance. Just think through the years that they've just found better ways in the medical community to either circumvent using that particular drug, or that particular drug combined with another drug would create this weird side effect. So they phased out a lot of them. And I think that's where a lot of that stuff is kind of onto the wayside. Because I mean, unfortunately, some of the stuff did work really great for what we did. As a medical community, they're just like, this is highly inefficient, and no one wants to do this. But we're like, But I've heard of it. I never use it myself. but you know, I know people that have, and you know, they did have great results with that in the past. But yeah, I haven't seen that in quite some time. So.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Otherwise, yes, I use the one I currently use, or would currently use, is a potassium sparing Lasix, which means it shouldn't have too much effect on the heart. But again, it's a safer type of Lasix, because Lasix is obviously that furosemide will screw you up. Yeah, it's a loop diuretic. It will just kill you.
Most people don't realize is when you take Lasix, you do need to supplement with potassium. So they'll Lasix, and it's like, oh no, wait a second, you know, you're you know what you're doing. I had a judge once tell me, oh, just like between the night show and the day show and night show, oh, go and take some Lasix. I'm like, it's horrible advice. Why would you tell someone to do that? I don't know what I'm eating, what I'm doing, you know. And it's literally, I just need to drink a little bit more water to flush the carbs and look tighter, you know. But you know, that's the attitude that people get, because they're like, oh, Lasix is strong, let's just give these people this, you know. And then
that is very true.
One of those really strong, you know, and it not only can make you look much worse, you know, it's actually, you know, potentially, you know, very dangerous as well. So.
I mean, I've witnessed in all the years of competing with fellow guys abroad and stuff, I've never witnessed anyone look great using Lasix. Like you say, Robbie, it'll pull some water down off you, pull a few kilos off you, but you don't necessarily look better for you. You just look a smaller version of the fat kid that you did before you got on stage.
That's it.
But there's one, I mean, and there's one person that I can recall years ago, and you won't mind me saying, I'm sure, Kelvin Hind, who's a good friend of mine, and he's type 1 diabetic. So when he carbs up and he tries to look full, we can easily soften out with it. So he has a harder time than other people. But I remember we done a WABA, I think it was a Universal World Championship abroad. And in the pre-judging, he was nowhere. He looked soft. He'd spilled, which is the way the carbs would affect him. And then he went away and he'd done exactly that, Jeff. He took a Lasix or two in the sort of 6 to 8 hours that there was between the morning show and the overall night show. And he almost won the whole show. He was like seeing a different person on stage. He looked amazing. But for that 6 to 8 hours, he was lying outside on a park bench, hurting like hell, and couldn't communicate with anyone if he wasn't peeing. So, it isn't safe. And the things that bodybuilders do to suffer just for that one moment on stage is nuts if you look at it from an outsider's view in. But when you're in amongst it, you'll do anything to be the better man on stage. And, sometimes it's a Russian roulette, whether it comes right or wrong. And it's all very well saying, we get in shape 2 weeks early and then we just coast in and everything's safe. And it doesn't always work.
But on that note, because I am in prep, I need to run to the bathroom real quick. Because we're talking about this. Hold on.
You're going. Well,
he's been holding that, hasn't he? He's been holding that for like ages, hasn't he?
You can see him jumping around on the seat like he's got ants in his pants.
Can't he just use a bottle like everyone else?
That's just you, Rob, because
is it?
You don't want to put Netflix down.
Can't, just that's it. Just stick a bottle underneath and then away you go. Just hope you don't get any drips on the sofa,
Oh, terrible.
I know, yeah. So tell me more about this this bro show. Was it? You said the turnout wasn't fantastic.
Yeah,
and
no.
The standard. What was the standard like?
So the pros and cons of it. Obviously, the pros is it's a new, the federation now has been taken away from the UK BFF, so you can get your pro card without being involved in the politics of not being able to compete for any other federation. So 2 bros, you can compete for everyone you want, NABA, WABA, IBFA, whoever you like, and compete for them, and they won't judge you down on it or stop you competing like the UK BFF. And now the UK BFF doesn't hold the monopoly for the UK to get a pro card.
Yeah.
And there's lots of, you know, I think there's 7 cards given away at each of these events, and there's 2 or 3 a year. So there's many more opportunities for the UK to get pros out there, which I think is great. But they put it on in Stratford. I think it was at where the Olympic Village was, that area, which is kind of near that big shopping centre, Westfield, that's there.
Yeah.
And so the tickets were crazy money, but I expected the tickets to be a lot of money because that venue's have cost them a lot of money to hire. And I paid £40, which was for 3 classes. So not the whole day, not the whole weekend. It was over 2 days. You chose the classes that you wanted to watch, and you paid for that. To be totally honest with you, although it seems like £40 for 3 classes, that's a rip-off, which is kind of what a lot of people were saying on social media. Because I've been watching these things for years, but that's all I wanted to see. I only wanted to see this men's classic physique federation because that's a growing, and the first time it's been brought to the UK and on stage. And one of the guys that I train with, Charlie, has done that class and is looking to do that class. So it interested him, which interests me because I want to see what he's up against. And it had the men's bodybuilding and the women's physique. So it was kind of the meaty classes, which is all I wanted to see. So normally you go to a show, you sit there all day, you got to wait till 10 o'clock at night to watch the actual classes you want to, and then there's no one left by then because they've all gone home. But in this case, only people that wanted to go to that specific part of the show were there, and you had a period that you had to get to there. So you either went, I think we had to get there 11 in the morning, and it was done by 1 or 2 o'clock. So, you know, that's great, you know, compared to wasting the whole day, it worked out really well. And then we could go off and get something to eat and the rest of it after. So although it seemed like it was a bit expensive, and it certainly did put a lot of people off attending because it wasn't busy, you know, it wasn't busy. There wasn't many fans in the audience. Whether that's because it was the location, there was shit parking. We had to walk like miles to get to the venue, but we did park in a terrible place. But there's no direct parking outside. And, you know, bodybuilders, we all want to be buff and fit and ripped and lean, but no one wants to walk anywhere to get in anywhere. You ain't joining the gym unless you can park outside. It's just so it's like that. Like you know, you go to watch a bodybuilding show, but you don't expect to walk to it. You expect to be able to like park on the doorstep. So that was an issue. And then the venue wasn't great because it sounded better than it was. It was actually like a conference room of an office block. So it was a weird setup, really. On camera, though, if you've seen any photos that came out, it looked pretty cool. Backdrop was all right. You had Bob there commentating. So it kind of, you know, it focused on what was needed to be seen. And because there wasn't many people there, you could sit right by the front and you're not fighting for a view and stuff like that. So there was pluses and minuses. It definitely will grow. I think they've learned by their mistakes, and they've booked the next show, which is the one I hope to do in June, in Coventry, in a theatre like it should be done. Yeah. And that's got a better feel if you're competing, because this place had no changing rooms, it had nowhere to wash, no showers, no nothing for anyone. They had makeshift things at the side of the stage with a black sort of pull-up round. It's, you know, it's not fantastic. And the competitors, I think to enter the show, you have to do 150 quid or something like extortionate to enter a show, which I don't know what it's like over there, Jeff, in America, but in the UK, it's like 20 quid and you're in the show, you know, and that's your membership for the year and stuff as well included normally. But this has come over and it's like got a big price tag on it. You can enter more than one class, which quite a lot of Europeans and foreign guys did at this one. So you could do, for example, I could do masters and my weight class, but then I'm going to throw 300 quid at it, you know? So it's a lot of money to think about on that respect after you've just forked out all that money on a prep and stuff like that as well. So I think the next one, it'll be a lot better. There's a lot of Europeans and internationals that come over to compete at it. Lots of guys that looked, I don't know where they were from, but, you know, it was like Ali, Mohammed and like names such as that. So there was loads of them. I presume they're from like the Arab Emirates or Kuwait or something, but that's obviously grown a lot since, you know, all the boys have gone over to the Camel Crew, and it's kind of, if you look at Dubai and stuff, the gyms out there are crazy good now. seems like a huge impact into fitness has happened there with the money behind it. So that's probably why they was all over it and entering every class they could, because they got the money to do so. But the standard of them wasn't fantastic, to be honest. The standard overall wasn't fantastic. It was a good show, but it was the easiest pro card I've ever seen you could win in the UK. So by that, I mean, I'm not begrudging or talking down the federation at all, but it was like going to the Beck Theatre to do your Southeast qualifier standard. But if you won the overall the Beck Theatre, you've become a pro. Now, when would that ever happen normally? It's like that would be a joyous occasion to have that opportunity. There's only like one or two guys you've got to beat, and pretty much you know you're going to win your class kind of standard. So it's not like what we're used to get a pro card. You have to get to the British finals after winning the Beck Theatre, and then you've got to beat the best of the best from all the regionals, and it's insanely hard to get in the top 6, let alone win the overall. So it's something to get used to, because I'm only used to seeing it getting a pro card at that top level. The unfortunate thing that I witnessed was the 2 or 3 pros in the classes that I was sat through that became pros because they won their overall in the classic or the bodybuilding or whatever. They were almost dumbfounded that they'd won, and they tried to get a little bit of commentary out of them on the microphone. And it was a bit, you'd like a bit more personality. You know what I mean? Where I've done it 20 years and you've done it for a long time, and you know, we have people in the UK like Zach Khan try over and over and over again and never quite make the pro card and eventually get it. It has held so much worth. Like, for example, like if you've done something 10 years and you become a pro, finally you've achieved your dream and it's got a lot more depth and meaning. Whereas I think the girl that won the figure class, it was the first time she's ever competed and she's a pro. And you're like, wow, do you know what I mean? So the guy that won the overall was a German fella, and he had a really good physique. He beat Jamie in the overall. I can't think what his name was. But he's young. He's competed once before as a junior, and now he's competed again and he's a pro. And he has a good physique. And I think like he's got potential to put a lot of muscle on. He had a very pleasing physique. But with that, it's difficult to see the worth of a pro card when we're used to it being such hard work to achieve one. But that's just something that I and the old sort of dinosaurs have got to get used to, I suppose, because it doesn't need to be that hard. And I welcome the fact that people can get that now and go on and start again in a big pond and hopefully achieve their dreams. But so all in all, it was a good show. I was gutted for Jamie Johal. Aaron Hudson was there as well competing. So they were the 2 kind of big names that we're familiar with in the UK. But it wasn't like the British final standard. But I think it'll grow bigger and bigger, and the June one will be notoriously harder. And me and the guys that went out to watch the first one, we sort of said along the way, this first one's either going to be really good and a hard standard, or it's going to be really terrible, and we're all going to sit there and think we should have had a go because that's a really easy opportunity, which we probably won't get again, which it kind of was. But because it's so early on in the season, no one wants to diet through Christmas and stuff like that. So which is another reason why the numbers were down, I'd have thought. But yeah, we'll see how it goes. And the next one's in June. And in June, there's lots of other PCA shows and other decent like qualifiers that now you can get to compete in all of them without any sort of fines or bans or any of the rest of it that used to go on. So that, I think it's all moving in a positive. It's definitely growing. We'll have a go at the next one. The question is whether to do it as a master or to do it as a wherever I fall, like you, Jeff, like on the line of a heavyweight super heavy. And I presume, or I could do both, but I'm too stingy to pay 150 quid twice. So I'll just make a decision close to the time, I think. But I don't think any of it's going to be easy. But I kind of feel like it would be quite cool to compete with the guys that I'm training with in the same class, you know, because we're all friendly and there's friendly fire at the moment in the gym, a little bit of competition. And then as it gets closer, they'll be getting some little squinty looks at each other when you're posing, just thinking, oh shit, but that only inspires you to work harder or diet tighter and stuff like that, I think. So we'll see what happens. That's down the line. Yeah, probably try and get there without breaking some other joint on my body. Yeah. And what about Robbie Anchant?
What about me?
Well, before you get forgotten that you was a very good competitor, is that this, like you keep mentioning, you might bring it back? Would you ever bring it back? Now is it an easier way to get on with it in Canada because you've not got the distractions there yet, or what's going on?
Oh, I think so. Yeah, to be honest, it's life at the moment is easy, but then of course is getting everything from permanent residence to all that the rest of that sort of stuff. So yeah, we'll see how life kind of goes, because possibly the first 6 months are very much just getting used to it and getting used to your new surroundings. You have to remember that, you know, when you spend your entire life in one country and then you move to a different one, it does take a little bit of acclimatization. You've got to, you know, you just have no idea where everything is, and it's going to take a while to get your bearings and so on. But yeah, I mean, the great thing there is you need that motivation. You need the people around you. The best thing you can do, I think, as a bodybuilder or even as a person, is to just always have a good support network around you. If you've got that good support network around you, people who are egging you on, making you kind of train harder, you know, your goals are there and stuff, and just surround yourself with good people, then honestly, you can literally, you can do bodybuilding into your 70s. I think I don't advise it, but you know, you can certainly do it, definitely. But yeah, I'm at that kind of weird age now, where I'm almost seeing the legs starting to disappear. You know, they're starting to come down a little bit, and I'm getting a little bit worried. So I've upped the leg workouts to literally almost 2-3 times a week, because I'm, you know, it's like, oh, what am I going to do out here, sort of thing. And then of course there's access to under the counter supplements, shall we say? So there's that.
You haven't found your supplier yet, is what you're saying?
No, I have a supply, but it's whether or not, you know, it's whether or not, again, the same thing, whether to go on again, because I haven't now been on for a solid year. I mean, the great thing is I do have a 6-pack when I draw it on, so that's no problem at all. Just a couple of lines and it's just there, you know. Yeah, that's it. It looks great from a distance, just don't get too close, you know. And it's there. But yeah, I mean, yeah, you know what, I think like you said, Neale, it's all about the hunger. You get the hunger back and you can pretty much choose to do anything. And I think the great thing is there's a pro show, I think, coming over here, and I think Ricardo's coming over here in for this particular pro show. He's a good friend, obviously, and so I think I'll hook up with him and stuff, and you know, head backstage and hang out with him for a little bit. But yeah, it's all about keeping the hunger alive, and I think if you can keep the hunger alive, then you know, never say never. I think that's the key.
Yes, sweet. Okay, good. So we better probably wind this up now, because we must have been on it for an hour and a half or so. I haven't actually set a timer, but we've mentioned obviously Jeff's competing, this and that, and he's given some insights into what he's doing. Now, Jeff, we haven't mentioned what your show is, the main show you're doing is. So the next time we're on this podcast, we want to have a little post-show feedback as to how it went. So the show you're doing is, if you want to tell the people, like, actually, I know because I was going to compete with you there, and then I bottled out because I found out I was going to compete against you.
My first show is going to be the Jay Cutelr Classic, March 31st at the Palms down in. So yeah, definitely, you know, I'd love to do something, you know, after that with kind of a recap on my victory and my overall win. But you know, it's you know, I'm really looking forward to it. You know, I haven't competed since 2016, and I didn't want to tackle any national shows this year because I've been away for so long, and just kind of get my feet wet back and comfortable on stage. So I'm really looking forward to I'm gonna do the first show is gonna be the Jay Cutelr Classic down in Vegas. The next big show will be here in Boston on April 28th with a couple smaller shows in between. The show here in Boston, it's always a very, very competitive show for all the Northeast. So, I have to be at my best for these shows. So definitely working hard and bringing my best. So I'm excited to see how it all goes. And, at the end of the day, I know that I'm going to be in my best condition. So if someone's going to beat me, that means that they're just better than me. So good luck to them.
Lovely. And so we've mentioned a bit about you prep me, you've coached me a couple of times. So tell people how they can get in contact with you. And I know you're doing it there, Robbie, and myself. So we'll just drop your emails or your contact details.
I can be reached at jsurrettefitness@gmail.com, or hit me up on either Facebook or Instagram. On Instagram, I'm at Big Jeff Surrette. And then, I don't know, Facebook, I'm just Jeffrey Surrette. I don't know. Picture of me.
Well, if you want to catch me, you'll find me on Instagram as Rob Still a Monster, one word. I also have a YouTube page somewhere called Le Monster Tube, one word. You can sort of contact me pretty much, on, I would say, Instagram. Just message me on there. It's easiest.
Sure. And then obviously I'm at Crunch Gym. I think that's on Instagram at Crunch Gym. And my email is Neale, which is spelled Neale @crunchgym.co.uk. So we're going to come back and looking at doing a podcast every couple of weeks if Jeff's recovered from his show and he can face talk in between the show like 6-7 days later, which would be cool to see how he gets on. So if anyone's got any questions that they want to bring up that we can talk through on the shows to follow, please just hit any of us up on them and we'll make sure we answer them. If you've got any questions about Robbie's love life or Jeff's competitions that he's got coming up, please come back to him. And we've just got to drop a couple of sponsors from the UK Beef magazine that we have. And like the main sponsor we have is musclefinesse.com. They're one of the cheapest online distributors in the UK. I've used them forever, and they've got all the sort of main ranges and the big American brands. And the UK Beef is highly sponsored by Stay Lean, which is a new brand that they're bringing through the UK. So that's it from us. Hopefully you'll have learned something from some of these tidbits. But if you want some specifics, especially on some of the more kind of controversial things that we talked about, like Jeff mentioned DMP, I would definitely contact Jeff because he's the man that's talked to me about it. If you want any other advice on contest prep, then me or Robbie are there as well. But I think it's always good before you get involved with anything that's slightly unsafe or taboo, like insulin, DMP or whatever. You don't just listen to the guy in the gym. You listen to someone that's been there, done it and experienced from it. And apart from that, stay healthy, stay fit, and train hard, win easy. See you again next time.
Okay, guys.
See ya.
Okay.
Oh, well done.